Namaskar viewers, hello and welcome to Sansad TV. I'm Teena Jha with the news, where we take you through all the major news stories from across India, our neighborhood and also around the world. But before that, the top headlines this Wednesday evening. Union Cabinet approves extension of National Gram Swaraj Abhiyan till 2025-26. Decision to help 278,000 rural local bodies achieve sustainable development goals. External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar meets US Commerce Secretary, emphasizes reliability of supply chains and transparency in business. Also, Defence Minister Rajnath Singh visits Indian Pacific Command headquarters in Hawaii. India's exports increased by 20% to $42 billion in March. Monthly commodity exports crossed $40 billion for the first time. Anti-government protests continue in Sri Lanka. Prime Minister Rajapaksa invites protesters for talks. Opposition mulls no confidence motion against the government. And the nation remembers martyrs on 103rd anniversary of the Jallianwala Bagh massacre. Vice President and the Prime Minister paid their tributes. A quick look at what else made news through the day today. Udupi police file abetment to suicide case against Karnataka Minister Ishwarappa after whistleblower contractor Santosh Patil found dead on Tuesday. Civil Aviation Ministry says 14 AAI airports now equipped with ambulifts to facilitate flyers with reduced mobility. BJP's Tejasvi Surya on dharna after being detained on way to visit Rajasthan's riot-hit Karoli. Bombay High Court rejects bail application of Elgar Parishad case accused Varvara Rao in Bhima Koregaon violence case. The CBI takes over investigation into 5 cases of alleged corruption against former Mumbai Police Commissioner Parambir Singh. Odisha government to launch hockey clubs in schools in all districts of the state. Audio-visual representation on money transacted through UPI wins praise from Prime Minister Modi. Amid 4th wave scare, 10 more school students test COVID-19 positive in Noida, Uttar Pradesh. Total cases touch 20 in the district. Bombay High Court grants BJP leader Kirit Somaiya protection from arrest in INS Vikrant funds case. Young Indian Grandmaster R. Pragnanda wins prestigious Reykjavik Open chess tournament. And the big story of the day today, the Union Cabinet, chaired by Prime Minister Narendra Modi, approved the extension of Rashtriya Gram Swaraj Abhiyan for the next 4 years. 5,911 crores will be spent on the scheme, with the centre contributing 3,700 crore rupees. The decision will help 278,000 rural local bodies to achieve sustainable development goals.
राष्ट्रीय ग्राम स्वराज अभियान को 2025-26 तक 5,911 करोड़ रुपए का आउटले की मंजूरी दी गई है। इस स्कीम के माध्यम से 2,78,000 रूरल लोकल बॉडीज को सस्टेनेबल डेवलपमेंट गोल्स के लक्ष्य को प्राप्त करने में सुविधा मिलेगी, मदद मिलेगी।
Training has been imparted to 1 crore 36 lakh people under the scheme. 1 crore 65 lakh people more will be trained. The scheme is aimed at ensuring equity and inclusion by strengthening the panchayats. It also sets up an institutional framework for capacity building of panchayati Raj institutions. On Thursday, the government also approved a new policy for use of land acquired for local mining to increase investment and employment generation. Coal and energy infrastructure can now be established on land that has been mined or is unfit for mining. Government companies will be able to lease land without transfer of ownership. This will create a large number of direct and indirect jobs. The cabinet also approved a memorandum of cooperation between India and Japan in the field of decentralized domestic wastewater management. Apart from this, the cabinet has approved a bilateral MOU between Securities and Exchange Board of India, that is the SEBI, and Manitoba Securities Commission of Canada. For more details on these cabinet decisions, I am joined by my colleague Vishal. Vishal, good evening. So if you could help us and our viewers understand what the important cabinet decisions have been and how they are going to benefit.
Well, good evening, Teena. You have, listed all of them in detail out there as far as cabinet decisions are concerned. But there's a common thread if we have to, look at where exactly are the benefits going to be and what kind of decisions are these, the key significant ones, be it the Rashtriya Gram Swaraj Abhiyan or the amendment to the CBA Act and, that memorandum of cooperation which is being signed with the Japan vis-a-vis the decentralized domestic wastewater management as well. One key element here is, and a common thread here, is a socio-economic development. Now the Rashtriya Gram Swaraj Abhiyan does give a lot of, have a lot of elbow room and maneuvering room to the rural local bodies in terms of more finances which these bodies will have, and they will spend on, the achievement of the sustainable development goal. In turn, this will benefit the rural communities, the people living in villages as well. As far as the CBA Act amendment is concerned, it's going to be really important because non-mineable areas will be open to development now, and that is going to create more direct and indirect jobs. This is going to be something very significant in the present economic scenario. More jobs being available out there, and let's not forget about the agreement, the proposed cooperation with Japan out there on the domestic wastewater management. That is an area which India has been working on very steadily and has been trying to find solutions to most of its cities face that particular problem. And Japan seemingly has certain technologies which can be applied here, and a solution can be found. So there's a lot of action there if we read, between the lines and deeper into what exactly the cabinet has decided to do.
Absolutely. So certain important decisions that the cabinet has taken today, and Vishal has explained to us how it's going to benefit the people in the rural areas, and also the wastewater management cooperation that we are undergoing with Japan is something that is going to be very, very beneficial in the longer run. Thank you, Vishal, for taking us through the benefits of all of these schemes that have been approved by the government today. Moving on, Prime Minister Narendra Modi will inaugurate the Pradhan Mantri Sangrahale on Thursday. The Pradhan Mantri Sangrahale is built at Delhi's Teen Murti estate and covers lives and contributions of all the 14 former prime ministers of the country. The museum is aimed at sensitizing and inspiring the younger generation about the leadership, vision and achievements of all our former prime ministers. The design of the museum is inspired by the story of rising India. The logo of the museum represents the hands of the people of India holding the Dharma Chakra, symbolizing the nation and its democracy. There are a total of 43 galleries in the museum. The total area of the two blocks is over 15,600 square meters. The museum has employed cutting-edge technology-based interfaces to encompass heterogeneity in content and frequent rotation of display. On the diplomatic front, External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar met U.S. Commerce Secretary Gina Raimondo on Thursday. Raimondo expressed interest in continued engagement with Indian government as the United States moves towards the launch of the Indo-Pacific Economic Framework. Earlier, S. Jaishankar discussed bilateral trade relations with U.S. Trade Representative Catherine Tai, recent changes in trade relations between the U.S. and India, and the impact of Russia's attack on Ukraine on global trade and economic affairs also figured during the talks. The External Affairs Minister also interacted with students of Harvard University. He said India-US relations have undergone radical changes in the last 2 decades, be it in diplomatic, security, cooperation, or economic and technology partnership.
It is equally necessary that there is a better understanding of India and the world on the part of young Americans. Your appreciation of a civilizational state and a fellow democratic polity that is daily overcoming enormous odds is essential. After all, we are natural partners only when our people have a strong sense of connect.
Defense Minister Rajnath Singh visited the headquarters of the United States Indo-Pacific Command Pacific Fleet and the training facilities in Hawaii on Wednesday. Rajnath Singh also laid a wreath at the National Memorial Cemetery of the Pacific. The United States Indo-Pacific Command and Indian military have wide-ranging engagements, including a number of military exercises, training events and exchanges. Back home, Lok Sabha Speaker Om Birla launched the campaign Har Parivar Swasth, Har Gaon Swasth in Kota in Bundi. He said the disease is often detected late in rural areas due to lack of awareness. The door-to-door campaign will identify patients, conduct tests and also carry out treatment. The Lok Sabha Speaker said every person will have a digital health card that will record his or her medical history. Chhattisgarh Chief Minister Bhupesh Baghel met Union Home Minister Amit Shah in New Delhi. Matters related to Chhattisgarh were discussed. The Chief Minister appealed to the centre to restart the special assistance to 7 Naxal-affected districts in Chhattisgarh. The Enforcement Directorate has attached several properties of jailed Maharashtra Minister and NCP leader Nawab Malik under the Anti-Money Laundering Act. The properties include a commercial unit in Kurla, Mumbai, 147 acres of agricultural land located in Maharashtra's Osmanabad district, 3 flats in Kurla and 2 residential flats in Bandra. Malik was arrested back in February. A joint team of CBI and EPFO's Vigilance Cell conducted searches at 2 offices of the EPFO in Nagpur, Maharashtra. This action was taken after complaints of irregularities against some employees. Several documents pointing to the crime have also been seized during the search. The DGCA banned 90 SpiceJet pilots from flying the Boeing 737 MAX aircraft. The DGCA said the pilots were properly trained to fly the aircraft. It said they will need to pass the training once again. Moving on, India exports grew by 19.76% to $42.22 billion in the month of March this year on the back of good performance in fields related to petroleum products, engineering and also leather. Total exports increased to a record high of $419.65 billion in 2021-22. In the same month last year, Indian exports stood at $35.26 billion. Imports, however, increased by 24.21% to $60.74 billion in March 2022. India's monthly commodity exports in March 2022 rose to $42 billion for the first time. The estimated value of services exports saw an increase of 4.64% to $21.76 billion in March this year. Services imports rose 7.33% to $13.16 billion last month. Vice President M. Venkaiah Naidu has called for intensified efforts for early detection of leprosy cases, equitable access to appropriate treatment, and integrated leprosy services. The Vice President urged people and civil society organizations to join the campaign to eradicate leprosy and called for intensified efforts for equitable access to appropriate treatment and integrated leprosy services. The Vice President presented the International Gandhi Award for Leprosy 2021 to Dr. Bhushan Kumar from Chandigarh and Sahyog Kusht Yagna Trust, Gujarat, at his official residence in New Delhi. The annual award was instituted by Gandhi Memorial Leprosy Foundation.
India still reports the highest number of leprosy cases in the world and accounts for 51% of the new cases detected globally. 2021 figures. We need to intensify our efforts towards early detection of these cases, provide equitable access to appropriate treatment, and provide integrated leprosy service in the geographically focused areas with commitment.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi virtually interacted with the security personnel involved in the rescue operations at Jharkhand's Devghar. The Prime Minister spoke with personnel of the Indian Air Force, the Indian Army, also the National Disaster Response Force, the Indo-Tibetan Border Police and members of the local administration. Around 60 tourists were trapped in cable cars midway for more than 46 hours at Trikut Hills, close to Baba Baidyanath Temple in Devghar since Sunday. 3 people also died while the rest of the tourists were evacuated by the joint rescue teams.
3 दिनों तक 2400 घंटे लगकर एक मुश्किल रेस्क्यू ऑपरेशन को पूरा किया और अनेक देशवासियों की जान बचाई है। पूरे देश ने आपके साहस को सराहा है। मैं इसे बाबा बैद्यनाथ जी की कृपा भी मानता हूं। हालांकि हमें दुख है कि कुछ साथियों का जीवन हम नहीं बचा पाए।
A new blood test to check for early signs of cancer in healthy people has hit the market. How does it work? More details on that story and much more from across the world after this quick break. Do stay with us.
Why does diplomacy matter? And how does it impact the common man? How did this happen? And what can be done to repair this important relationship? What is new in our foreign policy?
The glorious journey of India's 75 years of independence, protection of rights, ensuring equality, to empower, to deliver justice. Laws that have defined India and its people. Laws that everyone should know. Watch 75 years. Laws that shaped India. With me, Hemant Batra, only on Sansad TV.
Thanks for staying with us on the news. All the latest updates now from the war front in Ukraine. Russia's defense ministry has claimed that 1,026 Ukrainian soldiers, including 162 officers, laid down their arms in Mariupol. But a Ukrainian defense ministry spokesman said there was no information on such a surrender. The mayor of the city said 21,000 civilians have been killed in the southern city and 1 lakh are still awaiting evacuation. In Ukraine's northeastern region of Kharkiv, fresh shelling claimed 7 lives, 22 people have been injured. In an address to Estonia's parliament, Ukrainian President Zelensky accused Russia of using phosphorus bombs in Ukraine. He also charged Moscow with using terror tactics against the civilians. On the other hand, Russian President Putin told his country that the Ukraine invasion was a noble cause and that peace talks had reached a dead end. He said the offensive is proceeding according to plan with the goal of minimizing losses. Meanwhile, US President Joe Biden has accused Russian forces of committing genocide in Ukraine. He told reporters that it has in fact become clearer and clearer that Putin is just trying to wipe out the idea of even being able to be a Ukrainian. Ukraine's border force says over 870,000 Ukrainians have fled abroad. In fact, they've now begun to return to the country. The residents of the presidents of Poland, Latvia and Estonia are visiting Ukrainian capital Kiev to meet President Zelensky. News now from other parts of the world. The New York Police Department is looking for a man who rented a van they believe might be connected to Tuesday's Brooklyn subway shooting that injured 10 people. According to the police, the suspect fired at least 33 bullets inside a rush-hour train. An unoccupied U-Haul van in Brooklyn, matching the description and license plate number of a vehicle sought in connection to the shooting, was found and searched. And while officials say they haven't yet established a definitive link, they believe the vehicle might be connected to a man identified as 62-year-old Frank James. The van key was found along with a semi-automatic handgun, a hatchet, smoke grenades and other items at the scene. Meanwhile, the US inflation rate hit a fresh 40-year high in March after fuel prices soared during the first full month of the Ukraine war.
Consumer prices surged by 8.5% in the US. It was the largest annual gain since December 1981, following a double-digit rise in energy prices. Energy prices rose 32% in March after US President Joe Biden banned all imports of oil and gas from Russia following the invasion of Ukraine. Food prices also surged over the same period, up by 8.8%, also due to the Russia-Ukraine conflict. Both countries are big exporters of widely used goods such as wheat and sunflower oil. Last month, the soaring inflation rate prompted the Federal Reserve to lift its key interest rates for the first time in 3 years. It also signaled that the interest will rise many times this year. Inflation was already rising before Russia's invasion of Ukraine, as many global economies reopened following the lifting of COVID restrictions. But the prices appear to be going up at a time when wage growth is struggling to keep up. Recent figures show that average hourly earnings in the US rose by 5.6% in the year to March, well below the latest rise in the cost of living. Bureau Report, Sansad TV.
Some more global updates in this quick world wrap. At least 60 people were killed and dozens left missing in the South African city of Durban after heavy rains lashed the region with mudslides and floods. The floods have damaged port, major highways and also surrounding areas in KwaZulu-Natal province. Incessant rains have triggered floods in the eastern coastal province, causing heavy damage to life and property. Amid rising protests in Sri Lanka over the unprecedented economic crisis, Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa has offered talks with protesters demanding the resignation of President Gotabaya Rajapaksa and all members of his family from the government. The protests entered its fifth day on Wednesday. Meanwhile, India has reportedly offered up to another $2 billion in financial assistance to its neighbouring country. Pakistan's Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif directed the country's Interior Ministry to issue a diplomatic passport to former Prime Minister and his elder brother Nawaz Sharif. The PTI government under Imran Khan had refused to renew Nawaz Sharif's passport after its expiry in February last year. Earlier, Tehreek-e-Insaf Party chairman Imran Khan appointed Shehbaz Gill as his chief of staff. Gill served Imran Khan as a special assistant in the government before its ouster last week. In view of the increasing cases of COVID-19 in Shanghai, China, the Indian consulate has suspended diplomatic services available in person, that is, visiting the embassy premises. The consulate issued a notice saying Indian citizens living in the East China region can contact the Indian embassy in Beijing for speedy diplomatic services. The United Nations on Wednesday in a report stated that before the impact of the war in Ukraine, pandemic plunged 77 million more people into extreme poverty last year, and many developing countries can't recover because of the crippling cost of debt repayments. According to the UN, 812 million people lived in extreme poverty on $1.9 US billion a day or less. In fact, $1.9 US a day or less in 2019. And by 2021, amid the pandemic, the number had risen to 889 million. A medical breakthrough is about to hit the market. US government researchers are planning a large experiment to see if the blood tests do actually catch cancers earlier and save lives. Here's a report. A new type of blood test that checks for signs of cancer in healthy people has hit the market. Joyce Eris, a volunteer for the study, was feeling fine when she agreed to give a blood sample for research, but a positive screening test came as a surprise to her.
I went in and I had the blood test done, and they told me that I would hear from them in a week or so. And about a week later, I got a call that said,
the blood test is being billed as a new frontier in cancer screening for healthy people.
If we can find these cancers at earlier stages, before people have symptoms, they're offered many more options for effective treatment, and they're often curable.
It is a test that for the first time would take a blood sample and test it for a number of circulating DNA fragments that theoretically come primarily from tumors, silent tumors, to see, number one, if the person has any one of those 50 or 50 plus cancers, and hopefully, since there's so many cancers, could be used to narrow down where that cancer is to one or maybe two. That's how the theory works. I would say that we're early on in investigating whether the theory works in practice.
Such blood tests, called liquid biopsies, are already used in patients with cancer to tailor their treatment and check to see if tumors come back. But it's still unclear whether these screening tests will make any difference in cancer death rates. Bureau Report, Sansad TV. And time now for all the sporting action. It was a heartbreak for India's junior women's hockey team in the World Cup. Playing for the bronze medal, India lost to England in a penalty shootout 0-3. India had come back from 1-0 down to take a 2-1 lead. Mumtaz Khan equalized and then scored again to put India in the lead, only for Claudia Swain to level the scores with under 2 minutes left of regulation time. England got the bronze, their best ever finish at the Junior Women's World Cup. Real Madrid and Villarreal have made it to the semi-finals of the Champions League. Real held off a sensational fight back from Chelsea last night to win an enthralling Champions League quarter-final 5-4 on aggregate. Chelsea wiped out Madrid's 3-1 lead from the first leg and were on the brink of an incredible victory. Rodrigo volley on a sumptuous Luka Modric pass sent the contest into extra time. Benzema then stepped forward to claim the winner. In another match, Villarreal shocked Bayern Munich to reach the semi-finals, winning the two-legged quarter-final tie 2-1 on aggregate. In the Champions League quarter-finals, second-leg matches to be played tonight, two English giants will be on the field. EPL leaders Manchester City will take on Spanish team Atletico Madrid, while Liverpool will be tested by Benfica. City had earned a 1-0 win against Atletico last week. We'll hope it can remain on course for a second successive semi-final appearance. Liverpool has a 3-1 advantage from the first leg against Benfica and will play at home turf in Anfield. In cricket, defending champions Chennai Super Kings scored their first victory of the season, beating Royal Challengers Bangalore by 23 runs in a high-scoring contest played at the D.Y. Patil Stadium last night. Shivam Dube scored a scintillating 95 not out of 46 balls, and while Robin Uthappa scored 88 of 50 balls to set up a target of 217 for RCB, who remained in the hunt till Dinesh Karthik was out for 34 of only 14 balls. RCB could reach 193 for the loss of 9 wickets. And in today's match of the IPL being played at Pune, 5-time champion but yet to record a win in this edition, Mumbai Indians are taking on Punjab Kings. Mumbai have lost all 4 matches that they have played this season. Interestingly, Mumbai Indians are the only team to reach the playoffs after losing their first 4 games of the season. In IPL 2015, they lost first 4 matches and went on to win the tournament. And before we wrap up the bulletin, a quick relook at the top stories of the day. The Union Cabinet approves extension of National Gram Swaraj Abhiyan till 2025-26. Decision to help 278,000 rural local bodies achieve sustainable development goals. External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar meets US Commerce Secretary, emphasizes reliability of supply chains and transparency in business. Defense Minister Rajnath Singh visits Indian Pacific Command headquarters in Hawaii. India's exports increased by 20% to $42 billion in March. Monthly commodity exports crossed $40 billion for the first time. Anti-government protests continue in Sri Lanka. Prime Minister Rajapaksa invites protesters for talks, while opposition mulls no confidence motion against the government. And the country remembers martyrs on 103rd anniversary of the Jallianwala Bagh massacre. The Vice President and the Prime Minister pay tributes. So that's it from us in this bulletin. Thank you for your time. Good night.